Good morning, boys and girls. This is Miss Bomar, and we are back again today with our Seeds and Sunflowers book. And hopefully, yesterday you had a chance to comment what type of book you think this is, the genre of this book. So we're going to talk about that. The genre of this book is realistic fiction. So it is a fake story, but it has some realistic facts and details in it, okay, like the seeds and the sunflowers, and you can't really plant roasted and salted sunflowers into the ground and expect them to grow, or sunflower seeds into the ground and expect them to grow into sunflowers. And there's some other facts in the book that are some realistic facts that they're going to give us, but it is a fake fiction story. So if you got that correct, good job. And hopefully you had a chance to post either in the comments or a picture of just a little beginning summary. Okay, I only asked for a sentence or two, and this is just a rough draft. So this is just kind of a practice while we are talking about summaries and how we write summaries. It was just a little practice for you to kind of get one started before we get to the end of the book and write a final summary, an awesome summary that you are going to share on Google Classroom. Okay, so hopefully you got a chance to do both of those activities from yesterday, and we are going to continue reading our story. We were on page 8 of our story is where we stopped yesterday. And so something that you could have included yesterday in just the very, very beginning of your small summary is that we met our main character, Mike. So Mike wants if we remember from yesterday, Mike wanted if I can find it on this page, I'm going to underline it for you. Okay, he wanted a super spy kit. So Mike wanted a super spy kit, but he didn't have enough money, so he decided that he was going to plant and sell his own sunflowers. So that is a good short beginning of our summary that we know so far that only gives us the most important things that we have read so far. It doesn't give us every single detail that they've put in the first 8 pages, but it gives us the most important summary of what we have read so far. And so if you remember yesterday, we talked about a summary is just a short story of what you've read. Okay, you can't rewrite the entire story when I ask for a summary, but if I ask you for a summary, you can rewrite in about 5 sentences kind of what the entire story was about without having to write the entire story over again. Okay, you can kind of write a summary and tell me what that story was about with just about 5 sentences. And we talked about how a summary usually answers the questions who, what, when, where, and why. So we're going to do a little activity with that today after we get finished reading. Okay, so page 8. Yes, his mom said, but not alive. Seeds are alive? Mike asked. Gardening seeds are alive, she said. The seeds you eat aren't. What are you saying? Demanded Mike. My snacks are dead? In a manner of speaking, said Miss McCarthy. Mike groaned. That afternoon, Miss McCarthy took her son to buy live, organic seeds at the hardware store. Okay, and I remember yesterday we talked about that word organic, and we kind of talked about how it meant that it didn't have any chemicals on it, that it was natural. So she went to buy him some natural seeds that had not had any chemicals or anything like that put on them. He planted them after dinner as huge clouds massed in the western sky. Later that night, a July thunderstorm swept through and soaked Mike's garden patch. Within a matter of days, neat green lines of sprouts sprung up. Okay, so he got his organic seeds and he planted them, and the rain came through and watered them really well, and now he has little sprouts coming out of the ground. Mike was thrilled at first. It was happening, but plants were so still, so quiet, and he just had to keep watering them. It was hard to stay interested. One day he found Aster in his patch pulling weeds. How do you know which are the good plants and which are the bad ones? Mike asked. They're all good plants, Aster said, but the sunflowers are the ones reaching for the sky. He also noticed her out there sometimes with her dad's camera. A good photographer explored different angles and perspectives, but Aster always stood in exactly the same spot, taking exactly the same photo. Mike laughed and shook his head. Crazy kid. I wonder why Aster is standing in the exact same place every day, taking the exact same photo of the plants. I wonder why she's standing there doing that over and over again. And she's not really taking different angles like Mike said. She's just standing in the same spot. If I were to do that, that makes me think that maybe she might be doing that to see if the plants are growing, to kind of record what they look like each day. So I might do that. I might go outside and take a picture of the same plant in the same place every single day, and then I can look through my photos and see if they are growing at all. And so you can look at your pictures and see how they are changing each day. So I bet that is what Aster is doing in the garden, taking those pictures. By August, the plants were 7 feet tall. When they bloomed, Aster snapped another photo. Okay, so she's still documenting how those sunflowers are changing. Look how their faces follow the sun, she said. By September, those faces had filled with seeds. Mike rubbed his hands. Almost there, he said. The next time Mike glanced out the window, though, he spied a little brown bird perched on the stem of one of his flowers. Mike watched in horror as the bird reached up and stole a seed. Another bird landed, then another, all eating his crop. It was a sparrow conspiracy. Mike ran outside shouting. The startled birds lifted off and flew away. A little laugh issued from above. Mike looked up to find his sister swinging her legs from a maple branch. Okay, so he got really, really worried because all of these birds started showing up and eating all of the seeds out of his sunflowers. And he was going to use those seeds to plant more sunflowers. So he's kind of getting nervous that his plan is kind of falling apart because the birds are taking all of the seeds. And Aster is just sitting up there smiling and swinging her legs. She doesn't seem as concerned as Mike. So I wonder if Aster knows something that Mike doesn't. What are you doing? Mike asked. Watching, Aster said. Mike told his friend Derek about the birds. They're eating my investment, Mike complained. Okay, we have a bolded vocabulary word, investment. Okay, they're eating my investment. So if I use my context clues, he says they're eating my investment. So I know that the birds were eating the sunflowers, and I know that Mike is wanting to sell his sunflowers for money. Okay, so that tells me that an investment must be something that you invest money or time in to sell to somebody else. Okay, so he went out and he actually bought those seeds to plant. So before he could sell his sunflowers to anybody, he had to spend money himself. And or his mom bought them, but she had to spend money to help him get that going. So his an investment, if I think about it like that, is when you invest money into something. So when you spend money and then you get money in return. So he has invested some money into these sunflowers because he had to spend money to buy them. So he's investing his money into sunflowers so he can sell them and get that money back and extra money back. Sick pickles on him, Derek advised. Pickles was Mike's cat. Bye-bye, birdies. Aw, they're just birds, Mike mumbled. He wasn't really thinking about the birds, though. He was thinking about Aster, up in the tree watching the birds. Okay, now we have this really cool text feature in our fiction story. So we talked about text features in some stories that we have read a couple weeks ago, and text features, if we remember, are those really important graphs or captions or maps or pictures in a story that kind of help us understand what the story is talking about or understand what is happening in the story. So it gives us this really cool text feature, and it says Math Minute. In some situations, knowing the exact count of something is unimportant, impossible, or both. Yet, a general number, an estimate, may be helpful. In those cases, estimation is a good math skill to use. A single sunflower can easily produce more than 1,000 seeds. You probably couldn't count them all, nor would you want to. But you can make an estimated guess. Start by trying to count how many seeds are in a section of a head, say 1/10 of the whole. Then multiply that number by 10. You should come pretty close to the head's actual number of seeds. If you estimate that 1/10 of this head contains 40 seeds, does the how many seeds does the head have in total? Okay, so this kind of gives you an important fact about sunflowers and something helpful about their seeds. So if you ever wanted to go out and plant your own sunflowers, you would know how to use this little math skill to count the seeds in your sunflowers. So that is why text features are important, because they give you knowledge to use from your story in real life. Okay. Mike constructed a scarecrow instead, but the birds ignored it. The squirrels used the scarecrow's hat to launch themselves onto the flowers. By the time the seeds were ripe enough to harvest, there were only a handful left. Another money-making venture down the tubes. There's another vocabulary word, venture. That vocabulary word sounds a lot like adventure to me. And so an adventure, I know, is when you kind of explore something, or you go somewhere, or you take a chance on something. So a venture, we know that his money-making venture is trying to sell his sunflowers. So it's kind of like his plan or his adventure or his way of making money is now going down the tubes because all of the squirrels and birds are eating all of his sunflowers. On the first day of autumn, Mike woke to a bag of sunflower seeds on his pillow, the roasted, salted kind. He carried them to the kitchen, where Aster's photos were spread across the table. The photos chronicled the sunflowers from start to finish, along with the birds and the squirrels and the scarecrow. She'd even snapped a couple of the farmer. Okay, so we remember that Aster was taking pictures of the sunflowers every single day in the same exact spot. So the photos, it says they were chronicled. There's a vocabulary word. From start to finish. So if I know that she took pictures of the sunflowers every single day at the same spot, and then she laid all of those pictures out from start to finish, that tells me that she has put all of the pictures of those sunflowers in order from the first day she started taking pictures to the last day. So they're all out in order on the table. Mike studied the photos and watched the sunflowers rise before his eyes. Maybe, he thought, she knew what she was doing after all. Thanks for the seeds, he said to his mom. What seeds? She asked. Mike lifted the bag and shook it. Oh, I think Aster might have been the one that got those for him. Those didn't come from me, said Miss McCarthy. She plated up some scrambled eggs and handed them to Mike. Aster smiled at her brother. They came from me, she said. You bought them? Mike asked. Why? Aster looked back at her photos and everything captured there. That's why, she said. So what do you think Aster's plan is? Okay, we're looking at these photos and we know that she took pictures of all the sunflowers, but she also took pictures of the scarecrow and some of the birds. Okay, and that's the end of our story. If you look at that picture down below, there's one picture that has the picture of the squirrel. And then she has all the pictures of him planting and of the sunflowers growing. Okay, so she bought him a bag of salted sunflower seeds. And he asked her, why did you do that? And Aster looked at the photos and everything captured there. So everything that she had captured. So the squirrels and the birds. And she said, that's why. Okay, so maybe that tells me that she has a plan to give those salted roasted sunflower seeds as a snack to the birds and the squirrels. So maybe they won't eat his sunflowers anymore. So she seems to be helping him a lot with his plan to make money and sell the sunflower seeds. So she's doing a lot of work with the planting and the gardening part that Mike wasn't really sure about, or that he didn't know about and didn't realize was important. So she's been a really good help to him through this process and through his gardening. And that's the end of the story. So we just have to kind of imagine what they did next. Okay? So in the comments of the story, of this video, in the comments, I want you to write what you thought would have happened next in the story. Okay? We know that Mike was getting really frustrated and he really didn't have that many sunflowers left. And the birds and the squirrels kept eating all the seeds and kind of ruining his sunflowers. And so the story ends with Aster showing him the pictures of the squirrels and all of the sunflowers growing. And she gets him a bag of salted, roasted sunflower seeds. And she points to the picture and she says, that's why. So I want you to write what you think happened next in the story. You can write it on a piece of paper or you can put it in the comments. So tell me what you think. I want you to write the ending of this story, okay? Because it didn't really give us a for sure ending. We just kind of have to think about what might have happened next. So I want you to write the end of this story on a piece of paper or in the comments and post it in Google Classroom. Okay? Now, something else that I also want you to do is I'm going to put if it will load. Okay, this chart on Google Classroom. So we talked about that in a summary, these are the questions that we usually answer. So when you all are working on your summary, we're going to work more on it tomorrow. But when you are working on your summary, when I read your summary, all of these questions should be answered for me. So all of these questions, the who, what, when, where, and why/how should all be answered. So when I read your summary, I should know who the main character is, what he wanted, what his problem was, when the story took place, where the story took place, and why the certain events happened. So why did his sunflowers die and he wasn't able to sell as many? Okay. And then how the problem was solved. Okay. So when I read your summary, all of those questions should be answered for me. So we're going to use this chart as kind of a practice for our summary. So I'm going to post this chart in the Google Classroom, and on a piece of paper, I want you to copy this chart down. So at the top of your chart, or you can use this chart and type in it on your computer. So type in it on your computer or do it on a piece of paper. But at the top of your chart, you should have who, what, when, where, why/how. Okay. And then you're just going to answer the questions that I have here. So who is the main character in the story? What did the character want? Okay, we talked about some of these already. What was the problem? Okay, what did he want and what was his problem? They were like right together on the same page. When did the story take place? So it gives us some seasons that this story took place in. Where did the story take place? Okay, you can use the pictures or the words from the story to help you figure that out. And why did the certain events take place? Okay, why did some of the things happen in the story? Like, why did his sunflowers die? Why at the beginning of the story did his sunflowers not grow? Okay, some of those things. And how was the problem solved? So what happened at the end of the story to solve his problem? Okay, so I want you to work on this chart. Tonight, I want you to either on a piece of paper answer those questions in the chart, or you can open up this Google Doc and type in it and turn it in that way. Okay, I cannot wait to see your responses, and we are going to use this chart tomorrow and an anchor chart to help us write our summaries of this story. Okay, I can't wait to see your who, what, when, where, why charts and your comments in Google Classroom. And I will see you tomorrow.